welcome everyone again to the Sonar PC Podcast with Rob Adomus on YouTube and www.sonarpcpodcast.com, the website. This is a big deal for this show today. It is the official 1-year anniversary of the show, and I want to thank all the loyal followers and everybody new tuning in today. And a big surprise, something we've been working on for quite a while. As the show has grown, we are having our first guest interview as part of the 1-year anniversary. And today we've got world-renowned author Leo Zagami. Been working on having Leo on the show for about 6 months, and very happy and humble to say that he's on today. So for those of you who know Leo, you certainly know his work with Confessions of an Illuminati and the entire series with that. And he's a frequent talk show guest on the InfoWars show and in many, many talk shows around the world. And I am so pleased to have him here today. So to begin with everything, I'm going to have a good discussion here with Leo, and we're just going to rock and roll as far as what we're going to talk about. I'm going to let Leo sort of take the reins with everything, and the discussion will go and cover a lot of topics. So to all my viewers who know and don't know Leo Zagami, I want to present Leo Zagami to you all today.
Okay, let's do a joint kind of venture today. So it's a great pleasure that I'm here introducing you to Rod, how you spell it? Rod Adomus.
Rob Adomus.
Rod Adomus. That's good. So Rod, just give me a second that we have all the people tuning in on my channel, and then we can start. So we are about to kick off to start something special. Rod Adomus, on your side, how are things looking?
Things are good over on this side here, and how are things over on your side?
Well, here we are in Palm Springs in sunny California. We are a couple of hours from the border, and things are looking, of course, hellish with a governor who's a complete fool. And in Canada, of course, you have Trudeau, who is another complete fool. So we can maybe have a lot of similarities in you know. I think that we have, of course, a governor of California and the prime minister of a state like Canada who behave like absolute mondialists. Yeah, is that true?
This is true. And I think that, especially with the Canadian people, they should have seen this coming from 30 some odd years ago when his father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was running the country and was a...
He said his father.
His father.
People speculate his real father is in reality Fidel Castro. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
How's that gossip going in Canada? Is that has any base, any truth?
Absolutely. I've actually taken the pictures of Fidel from when he was in his younger days and put them side by side to what Mr. Justin Trudeau looks like right now, and they are pretty identical. So I tend to use Pierre as sort of his pseudo fake father title, and Fidel as his real biological father.
Well, that really confirms what I always said. We have to kill communists when they're children. There used to be a saying, the communists eat children. Well, I wish they ate their own children, because they become the biggest scumbags on the planet and hypocrites. Like Trudeau, who is a typical example of everything that is wrong on this planet. He's been pushing in the last few weeks the agenda of the LGBTQ community, even in children's schools. He has done something with these drag queens that, of course, is happening increasingly in liberal states all over the US. What can you say about that, Rob?
It's very frustrating, and when you talk to people, there's still that percentage of people, as we know them to be, Leo, the unawakened, who it doesn't seem to matter how much factual evidence that you put before them in a number of different ways, whether through specific people or specific situations, that just don't seem to get it. And Justin Trudeau, in his almost 4 years with the Liberal Party in Canada, has done nothing but create the most tyrannical, dictatorial, and treasonous 4 years that I have ever seen in Canada's 152-year history. And by the way, Mr. Trudeau thinks we're only 100 years old. So that kind of tells you he didn't go to class very often.
Now, I have done my own research in Canada. I have my own informers. I have my own sources. So I tell you, there is something wrong also with the conservative faction of politics from what I heard. So both of them seem to not really have much to offer. There seems to be a third party option that is popping up. I'm just scrolling here through my emails because I received a mail from one of the representatives who is actually a candidate. As soon as I find it, I will tell you who they are. I'm sure you have heard of them. They are basically proposing themselves as the third party option. So I'm trying to, okay, here I have the mail. Basically, from what I heard, let me see, because I have a lot going on with Canada. People keep on sending me mails about promoting this, promoting that. It seems that in the end, like this, the Democrats here in the US are promoting exactly what Trudeau is proposing on your side. Sure. Yes, this mail, they told me, is the People's Party of Canada. That
yes.
Apparently last weekend has done a convention. I had a candidate there, I know, somebody called Tina Riedel, who works also as a blogger and journalist at times, me informations and things. And she says that it could be an alternative because the Conservative Party has been proven to have ties to Islamist jihad and so on. What do you think about this assertion? I don't know much about Canadian politics, just to get information here and there. So you of course might be much more aware of how things are going.
Well, the PPC formulated a year ago with Maxime Bernier, who was with the Conservative Party, and he lost the Conservative leadership to Andrew Scheer. And because of that, in his view, and as I call it, there's always surface words, and unless you're a complete insider to what actually is going on, I take the words of what's going on in the public very, very much with a grain of salt. And Maxime Bernier decided, because he didn't win the leadership, that he was going to form his own party, in this case the PPC. And so they just hit their 1-year anniversary in order to try and lead up in order to be part of the October federal election. And you know, people, there have been, yes, some conservatives who moved over to the PPC and from other parties and such. But at this time, in my view, that as much as a lot of what the PPC is saying sounds quite good,
it's and like the PPC some kind of libertarian option like we have here in the US for a long time.
It's very similar. There's actually a Libertarian Party in Canada, but I think what they're promoting is that they're the alternative really to certainly the Liberals, but they are tending to put most of their criticism against the Conservatives because I think Max came from the Conservatives.
Well, and they're a bit of a problem though, because you are really creating an advantage for the party you should actually be fighting, which is Trudeau's party.
Exactly.
It could become like, it could backfire for conservatives to support an agenda which is not well established. Something that we know has been happening in the US with the establishment at one point of a third party option, which so involved also Donald J. Trump. And as you know, it ended up really not concluding much, that third option. So there should be a reform of the Conservative Party on the lines that we have seen here in the US. But unfortunately, you don't seem to have a Donald J. Trump that can take over the show.
No, it's something that for us who have been following this for a number of years and knew full well that the Liberal Party was not going to be the right choice to run the country. And there is a lot of information that states someone that you and I both know very intimately, George Soros, who put at least $6 million US through his Tides Foundation offshore to Trudeau's campaign. There's a lot of talk about that there was vote rigging in 2015. and as much as we know how much Soros was involved in the 2016 election through Hillary Clinton. So on a smaller scale, it was definitely his name highly involved up here as well. And we fully expect 2019 in October will do the same. So it's one of those situations where
you mean you are in some kind of twilight zone where you're stuck with Trudeau for the rest of your lives? I mean, come on, guys. Let's go to something that I want to discuss with you because it involves partially also Canada. Steve Bannon has just released his new movie, Close of the Red Dragon, an explosive film revealing the ties with Huawei and the Chinese Communist Party. Mm-hmm. We know that Canada had a big say in this whole espionage affair involving also the rest of one of the most important figures of Chinese lobbyism and politics, but also the Huawei, because I mean, talking about something that is a bit of an emanation of the Communist Party. So you followed this whole thing with the arrest of the Communist Party in Canada?
I followed it not really closely. I think I've followed it more from the fact that it's been more of a fight, specifically in media, of course, between China and President Trump in terms of imposing all these tariffs back and forth. And President Trump certainly talking about the unfair advantage monetarily that China has had for so many years. And I think the one thing that Canadians are starting to whatever degree wake up to.
Telling you that because Meng, her name is spelled Meng Wanzhou lawyers, accuse Canada's border staff of doing FBI's bidding.
That wouldn't be the first time that that it happened, because of the fact that research has shown years ago during the Second World War that because the law stated that the U.S. cannot spy on their own people and Canada cannot spy on their own people, they spied on each other's people and gave notes back and forth. So it's one of those situations where I never dismiss the idea that that is a true possibility that could have been happening in regards to this whole thing between Canada and China.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what do you think of Huawei? In one way or another, we are seeing a company used for the interests of a state. Do you think that the U.S. has simply politicized something that shouldn't have been politicized?
I think from the outside looking in, I think that President Trump and the whole situation overall with China, they are right in terms of taking what obviously in this situation is a very well-known company in the telecommunications field, specifically around 5G, among other things, which study after study is showing the terrible effects that it's going to have, not only on our brains, but I know full well down in California that bees are dropping like flies around all of the 5G cell towers. So there's going to require, I believe, a lot of still investigation in terms of all of this, but it seems that no matter the study that's coming out, the 5G part of things is not something that we should partake in, and the whole Huawei situation is more of a, let's say, a political with a side view of a monetary in order to bring it to some kind of agreement that I think in this case that the United States is just looking to have favor with. And based upon what President Trump has been doing for the country in his time down there, I would certainly side with him in that effect if that's really what's going on.
Now, we have seen that one of the accusations against Miss Sabrina Meng, alias Meng Wanzhou, whoever she's called, who is, by the way, the daughter of a close friend of Mao Zedong. We're talking here about elite of the communist hellish nightmare that is China. One of the accusations is that she was in some way dealing also with Iran. We know that Iran has been, of course, playing always a role in these geopolitical matters. What do you think is the Canadian role in getting her arrested and in a way participating to this whole thing?
I think that Canada has always been, unfortunately, sort of the redheaded step cousin, in this case of the United States. And as much as we would like to believe that we have our sovereignty and our freedom and such, it's really been what they call laissez-faire. And that means it's limited freedom. And, much like the educational system down in the States tends to be very left-leaning, the educational system in Canada has done the same for a very, very long time and politicized things to the point that people believe what they believe. And whenever you talk to someone who has leftist views, you can't even provide any factual evidence of the contrary. So in the case of Iran, I couldn't honestly say that Canada even has a very good pulse of what is really going on specifically with that, because anybody that Trudeau personally tries to put towards any kind of summit or a talk directly with President Trump or any other leader, the rest of the world pretty much is dismissing Trudeau and anybody else that he has as part of these groups, because they just don't seem to have the intellect, and they certainly don't have the care that is required in order to do what's right for the citizens of their own country, let alone in another country.
Now, I will leave the floor to you to give me some questions, your own question time for your own show. I have gone through a few of my curiosity regarding Canada. I would say that my last curiosity is, what's your relationship to the Queen of England? As you're part of the Commonwealth, you are bound to have an imposed relationship towards this ominous figure.
Well, maybe I'll sum it up this way, Leo, that if I was actually running the country, I would do everything possible to initiate the complete separation of the Queen and Canada and create our own republic here in Canada. To me, that would make sense, and that way we could put together, I think, kind of the policies and the rights and freedoms that any country would want to enjoy and believe is right. So, let's put it this way, the Queen and I would not see eye to eye if we were actually having to shake hands and speak with one another.
Okay, so is this the thought of the majority of Canadians, or the libtard slash Democrats slash communists love the Queen because, after all, they love to be communists, but they also bow down to the Queen, all of them?
There's unfortunately a mentality in, I couldn't certainly put a percentage on who they are, but I would say that there's enough of a percentage of the population in Canada who unfortunately feels like they would have to be led by somebody. They're not the type to ever actually step up and want to lead anything themselves, which is very unfortunate, because Canadian people overall are wonderful people, have great hearts, and love this country. But they've been fooled for so long. It is something that someone like myself and others of the same kind of mind and heart like you are trying to change. And it's a big undertaking, but I figured it's a simple formula. If you change one person, you actually have a normal conversation with somebody and present them with it, that they're open enough to the opportunity to change, and they really see what's going on out there, then it's like the double the penny for 30 days. It's not your efforts alone, it's a doubling of people every single day in order to do it. And I think ultimately that's what Canada has to do. People need to take their own lead in this and really get out there and talk to people and make them aware of really what's been happening, because there's too many still stuck in that whole leftist mentality.
Sounds like Canada really needs to have a deprogramming session slash exorcism from dementia. So let's go into your floor, and I'm at your disposal for your questions.
I appreciate that, Leo. Well, first of all, again, thank you very much for having me on the show and being my first ever guest on the show for our 1 year anniversary here. And I know a lot of my viewers know of you, and I've spoken of you many times in some of my previous shows. And I certainly looked always at the articles on, and I'm going to put this out there to my viewers, www.leozagami.com, and what you write about out there. For those who really don't have a background on you, Leo, I know that you recently moved from Italy, and there was a lot going on there for you. So if you could kind of bring all that into perspective for people, why that happened, that would be great.
Well, first of all, somebody says that slowly back away from the camera, I can see myself in your bald head. Oh my God. That's pretty picturesque. Let's go back to the question. Well, your question is, of course, an important question because it's about my life, the changing of everything in my life because of the persecution that me, my wife, my family had to be subject after the publishing of my books in Italy, in particular in Italy, where I started publishing in 2012 after I published my first 6 books in Japan. Between actually, I had at that point published first 5, I think, books in Japan, and then at that point I decided to go into the publication of my books in the Italian language when I finally found a courageous publisher, because it took me like 3 years. So while writing these books took many years, then finding the publishers, translating them, it took equally a lot of time. So I had written part of them in Italian, part of them in English, then it was translated in Japanese. So all this took time. But once the books arrived in the Italian market, they really created a lot of interest, and I was on every TV station. I'm talking about national TV station. Was of course welcomed by the media, some kind of curiosity, no? But when they saw that the people actually were receiving this knowledge and they were taking it seriously, and that my message wasn't just a message of some guy on History Channel wanting to investigate the mysteries, but was actually to take action, immediate action, and go and take the action means taking the streets, which the year after, that's what happened in 2013. Because at first I tried the political card, and once I was sabotaged doing that and I couldn't get to Parliament, I then got involved in this pitchfork revolution, which was actually the origins of the Yellow Vest revolution in France. So I managed to kind of create a stand and block half of the country for 3 months with all these people and with all these trucks. I had actually the unions on my side at one point. So I could block highways, create a situation of civil arrest. In fact, you can actually check it on Wikipedia. They call it the 2013 Italian civil arrest, and so there is a whole entry on that, just so people can know that I'm just not talking rubbish here. This is history in the making. And unfortunately, as history in the making, I was also subject to a persecution after that was equally very hard. The police broke into my house. They broke. They didn't even wait for me to take off my pajamas. They literally broke the door like I was some kind of terrorist. They locked me in for weeks. They wanted me to appear like I was insane, so they locked me in a mental asylum, filled me up with all these pharmaceutical drugs. And so I needed 3 lawyers to actually get out of this situation. It cost me a lot of money. And when I got out of this situation, I was actually said, they actually threatened me, and they said, if you bring again yourself to do this kind of thing and incite people to do a revolution, we're gonna lock you in for good, and that's it for you. So I had to have somebody from, and that's where my own order came into help. I mean, actually, some members of my order got me this chief psychiatrist in Italy to do a report that could actually get me out of the loop and go to the United States. In the United States, I found the right people, thanks to Sean Stone, the son of Oliver Stone, to publish my books and translate them in the English language, which is something that took many years. Took 3 or 4 years of my life to from the moment I came back from the US in 2013 to Italy, to the moment I finished, it was like 3 full years of full immersion, because we're talking about books sometimes at 300, 400, 500 pages. So you can imagine the amount of work that both me and my wife, who's been adapting in the American language, did for me. in the process, that we understood that this could be the only way to get out of Italy, to make my work known abroad. It had already been known in Japan, but in Japan, where I had actually sold already 100,000 copies, the problem is that the moment I started to criticize the Japanese system, the publisher just refused to publish any other books. So Japan is a great place to sell books, is a great place to launch your ideas. You can become big in Japan, but the problem being that when you start criticizing and finding, the OTO operating in Tokyo, the Freemasons doing this and that in Japan, blah, 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 then at that point, for them, it was no, there is no self-criticism by the Japanese. And that is something that really made me stop working with Japan. So I did only at that point, maybe, I couldn't be bothered anymore. So I did, I think, 6 books, and that was it with Japan. But I mean, it was a great experience. I will probably repeat it again, but I'm a bit disappointed with the Japanese lack of self-criticism, which actually is, it exists in Japanese culture, because then, but they go to extremes. At the end, karaki, and that's it. But, they should at least have a kind of in-between, instead of just killing themselves and getting out of the way like that. So, but regardless of Japan, I went on publishing my first 5 books in the English language. Then with my wife, we published other books with a new company, which we have created together. It's Cursum per Ficio. We have published already 2 books, and she published her own book, and she's preparing also a new one, and I'm preparing other books. Always for this new company that we have launched, which is going rather well. Books actually are making it possible, and that's why I invite people who are following me both on my channel, on your channel, to tune in. Yes, follow my videos, all that, but then if you want to really have a sense of what is really going on, get my books, because that's going to open your mind a lot more, and it's going to give you also some inspiration for much further studies. We are talking here about an academic way of putting things through. It's not like those old school conspiracy books with nothing is proven, everybody's speculating about everything. No, my books are about facts, sources that are credible, and working with the mindset of an investigative journalist. So I hope that gave you the right answer, Rob.
Absolutely, and I just want to kind of give a little quick overview of the title of your book series, which is Confessions of an Illuminati. And I was reading, of course, your latest one on the cyberspace, and appropriately numbered 6.66 and such. And as I've been reading through, certainly I've been promoting that to people to look into that, because there are so many tie-ins, and something especially that you mentioned in there. And Elon Musk had come to mind, especially with his Neuralink company. And most people, I think, have not even heard of Neuralink. They're so used to hearing about Tesla. That's always in the public domain. But I know that you did a recent article on Elon and Neuralink.
Like you said, he's one of the characters that appears in my site even at the beginning with his saying, Christy, can you please pass me volume 6.66 down there so I can have a look at it. Basically, this book that I have written, it's a book that is divided in two parts, really. I mean, on one, you see, right at the beginning of this book, you have a citation by Elon Musk, which is just it's a very important citation. I can really quite close. I am very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. He basically went on for years saying that it was a great danger to underestimate the AI business. And then what he does exactly the opposite in the end. He creates this Neuralink, whatever company, so he can then work on an interface with the brain. What's happening here, guys, is really that a guy like Elon Musk has simply joined the elite in their evil plan, which is to eventually upload their brains into a data system, which will have various data centers around the world, like the one they just built here in Mojave County with Sarah Ferguson and Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins, who is himself also a molester, accused of having molested various women. Sarah Ferguson, who is herself the wife, Duchess of another molester, because he's a friend of Epstein, the Prince Andrew. So all these pedophiles, molesters, corrupt individuals, they are selling the fact that they're doing this thing at the Mojave County, like saving the world with this big solar center. It has nothing to do with producing electricity, because all the electricity that they're producing in this project goes back to this data center, in which eventually they will upload their sick, demented brains, including the one of Tim Robbins. So I know that Tim Robbins is a great motivator, and everybody, everybody sees him like he's some kind of a guru god, whatever his name, his function. But I personally think that what they're doing there is really what we have always looked. We have been saying for years. There is a danger here. The elite wants to do something to eliminate all the population, 3/4 of it, and then eventually, we will be amongst those people who will be eliminated. No.
And I've met Tony. And I've taken a number of his courses. Decades ago.
Actually, Tony Robbins, you met him. Yeah, I mean, sorry, sometimes I don't call him in the right way, because. Tony Robbins, what kind of guy is he? I mean, he's big. But he gets paid an enormous amount of money for this rubbish. I mean, you must have paid a fortune, man.
I took it between 90 and 92. And so even back then, we were talking like a few $1,000s for his weekends and so on, but never took upon what a lot of people do with his island in Fiji. So that's enormous amount of money.
So you didn't, okay, so the people who really spend a lot of money are the ones who go into the island and have the full seminar with him and the time with him.
Yeah, I think that's roughly about a week or so that they are there, and I think it's called Namale or something like that in Fiji. And it's a whole undertaking with him personally. It's just a certain grouping of people versus thousands in an arena.
At this point, I'm going to have some Fiji water to recover.
Okay.
In Nairobi, what is his name?
So you mentioned.
Okay.
So you mentioned Leo that because you brought up.
You know that Robin, and just to close up, you know that he's one of the owners of Pegasus Project.
I don't know all of that. No.
Okay, so Pegasus Project is basically like the movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp. These guys have built a thing in the middle of the desert. Solar panels, upload of their brains in this thing, screw off the rest of the world, and Sarah Ferguson, in the meantime, the Duchess, ugly as fuck, because she's really something. I think it's long gone the time in which she had her toes sucked by some rich Texan. But the thing is that basically what they want to do, she was like talking, I mean, if you go and see the video of this event, she was there saying, oh, we're doing this for the poor children of Africa. I want to give some hope to one guy I met, a child in Syria, who asked me, oh, I want to become a law. Okay, I will give you some free energy. Guy, this is all lies. These people are lying. They're blatantly lying. They are criminals. They are really, and what I'm focusing on this thing is because they said it's the blueprint for a series of data centers that will be built also in Canada and worldwide, that will be same as this one here in Kingman, Arizona. So I would really like people to investigate this and to not let it go. So I like to go back on it every now and then, because I think there's a lot hiding behind this whole thing, and because also it's connected with what you said about Elon Musk. I mean, the moment in which you have the computer-brain interface, you are completely hackable. You can become an assassin in 2 seconds. They just, hack you, boom, and send you to the... So, I mean, we are going towards a demented world in which then there is a bunch of liberals here in California who have opened a company where they make these sexy robots. So you have a sexy time with a robot, and then the robot gets hacked and don't snatch your dick off. That's it.
Yeah.
It's dementia. It's complete dementia. Is the libtard mentality that unfortunately I'm still getting used to it, but I'm trying to study in an anthropological way by coming here in California and seeing this. They are very poor people. I mean, I'm gonna try to help them. My idea is to write a book on how to reprogram yourself from libtardness.
Sounds like a good one. You know, Leo, with all that we've been talking about here, one of the biggest subjects that you and I both know that's going on right now, that's getting exposed, and you've been one of the foremost, especially when it came around the Vatican and the Catholic Church and all, and that is surrounding pedophilia. Now, I noticed a number of your recent articles mentioned Greenland, mentioned obviously Cardinal Pell and his appeal that came up recently, and of course Jeffrey Epstein, that most people talk about in terms of the whole pedophilia, pedo island sort of thing. And it was interesting to me that you mentioned pedophilia in Greenland, because it's not certainly, I think, probably on most people's lips to even research Greenland because of its remoteness and so on. But now that it's getting exposed and it's trying to be normalized in the, mainstream media, because we know who controls mainstream media, what do you think that we can actually do about this situation in order for people to really get to know what's going on out there? And what can we do really maybe as people in order to counteract such an evil?
Yes, the normalization of pedophilia it's really scary. I mean, it's something that it is definitely scary. I mean, they are trying to normalize pedophilia, something that is totally out of order. And there is actually connections that I'm unfolding in my research in the last few days that I hope to put together in an article, really strong connections with Epstein and the Catholic Church. These two have been linked in each other. They have always some kind of link in each other. They want to normalize it because that's why one of the reasons why they have embraced Islam. Islam is a religion founded basically by a pedophile. So when you have a religion founded by a pedophile, of course you say, well, our prophet did it, so let's do it. So that's it, but their attempt to normalize pedophilia is much more subtle. They want to influence the media, the culture. They kind of bring in new movies, new TV series, new ways of saying, new ways of viewing things. So in the end, well, the boy love, the little girl is not anymore something that is anymore bad. If you start, pushing it, the drag queen that is maybe infiltrating the school, and maybe after, they discover, as usual, most of these drag queens that go to teach the drag queenism in school, they're all a bunch of sex offenders, by the way. But it always happen to discover this later on. So I am in front of a situation that is that is unfolding, which is disgusting, but we can't do much about it. Why? Because there is a guy like George Soros who has invested billions, and I love those billions. Here we have the common sense of the majority of people that have to reject this normalization of pedophilia. That's where we have to stand, you see? So we have to stand in front of this of this whole thing and say, no, you can't normalize pedophilia. There's nothing normal about it. It's completely sick. And if you are into that kind of thing, you should be chemically castrated. Actually, you should be hanged upside down.
I agree.
That is my view of it. I might be extreme, I'm not saying that there is also the LGBTQ community needs to be a lot more strong and harsh in condemning pedophilia, because the fact that they have been normalizing it within a community that otherwise, has also normal people that simply have, of course, they like people of the same sex. Okay, that's fine, but they are consulting adults. when there is children with this whole thing. I mean, of course, religiously we can condemn homosexuality, but we can never, condemn the person if, if the person is doing something between consenting adults. So that's why I'm always been supportive of people like Roger Stone parading at the gay pride and stuff. And I have a lot of gay friends, and I don't have a problem saying that. But the thing is, when it comes to pedophilia, no, there is that's I'm really strict. I'm really for chemical castration all the way, because there is that thin line that is being slowly the LGBTQ community, however they want to call themselves, is starting to get on the bad side of history. It's starting to really, and so LGBT are degenerated and supported by the elite if they do something like that. But it doesn't have to be that way. They themselves, there is a lot of conservative homosexuals that can't stand neither the libtards, neither this normalization of pedophilia. Now, they need to come out in the open and talk and make their voices heard.
I agree completely. An interesting note that you may or may not know about, Leo, is that the symbol for the Trudeau Foundation is almost an identical symbol to NAMBLA, their symbol, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. So most people, I know in Canada, have never heard of NAMBLA, but there seems to be a lot of parallels, and I know that Trudeau Foundation has donated hundreds of millions of our taxpayer dollars to the Clinton Foundation, among others, that we know. So there seems to be an unfortunate, let's say, they're promoting. Justin Trudeau tends to promote things that you and I have just talked about that we are totally against. And again, neither you nor I are against the gay community whatsoever, have plenty of gay friends and such, just the ones who are taking it to the extreme. And we unfortunately seem to have a leader who takes, I hate to use the word to create a pun here, pride in going to pride parades, but he will not go to meetings and parades for our veterans in Canada, who obviously fought.
Trudeau, we discussed it at the beginning of the show. The guy might be the legitimate son of Fidel Castro. For me, people like that should be killed when they were children. So, going back, I mean, if Mao Zedong had children and we could kill them, it was a good idea to kill them, because see what they're doing nowadays. The problem with communism is like in North Korea. When they give birth to a communist establishment, then they give birth to a communist elite, then they basically give birth to a sort of communist aristocracy. And so it is, they have, communism was born to persecute the aristocracy, the royals, the imperial families. They kill them, they chop their heads and all that. And then what they do, they establish their own form of aristocracy, like the Clintons, these are scumbags, the Joe Biden of the city. They think they are superior to other people, and that is a big problem for us. So going back instead to just to the Epstein case in connection to the Vatican, there is a direct connection that I'm investigating with the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. So there is a direct connection between Epstein and the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, which is one of the most influential in the Catholic world in the U.S., because they are usually in charge of the whole Conference of Bishops and so on. They are the ones who, So the fact that there is this link and that is coming out is bringing us basically, this dangerous connection between the Vatican and Epstein, which I'm trying to investigate deeper and deeper, because the more I go, and then I see the same people making these alliances, because what is their common goal? Normalizing pedophilia, accessing human trafficking, sexual slaves, and so on, because that's what they want. They don't want to bring in the Mexicans or bring in here at the border because they are desperate, or the South Americans that want to come through Mexico. They don't want to bring them in because they want to. They're saying, oh, they will help us pick up our strawberries or pick up our oranges. No, that's the problem is that they want their children to become their sex slaves. They want to pick up their children and bring them in the back of a church where the priest will sodomize them. That is what they want to do. So unfortunately, people are really not questioning, the libtards are not questioning all this. And that is the big problem. It's like you said before, you don't have the possibility of a dialogue with them or even putting through anything that makes sense because they refuse it. And that's
So Leo, again, thank you for allowing me time with you. I know you have a very busy schedule, and I know you have another interview later on today. And I want to thank Christy, of course, for playing liaison and all of that.
Thanks, Christy. Every now and then, she tries to arrange all these interviews and make it possible for people like you who are trying to launch also a new project. Which I mean, it's difficult in a place like Canada to launch your own, let's say, alternative media in some way.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that I could participate to this 1-year anniversary, and I'm of course I want to remind all my own viewers that I've been talking with a gentleman by the name of Rob. His surname, how you say it?
Adomus.
Is it Adomus? Which means?
It's actually a nickname that I was given, and through the philosopher from the 16th century, Nostradamus, because I ended up predicting a number of things that happened, sometimes some years or just a few months down after I predicted them. And so my friends called me Rob Adomus after that. So I thought that it was an appropriate title for a YouTube show.
Great, Rob. And somebody here on the board is telling me, Leo, I'm saying, why don't you discuss the Epstein's link with the Mossad? Well, I mean, of course, the Epstein links with the Mossad are quite mainstream. And we all know that the Mossad has been involved with human trafficking and the trafficking of organs, which unfortunately is something that it's a common kind of trade between China, the Vatican, the Mossad. Everybody that wants to make money is involved with both human trafficking and the trafficking of organs. That's another disgusting thing. I mean, you're taking advantage of poor people and going in front of these people and you're saying, well, if you sell me your kidney, I give you 50,000. And these people, of course, they will, and sometimes they don't even do that. Sometimes they just murder the person to take them. So, I mean, that kind of thing, guys, is so disgusting. I mean, it makes me really my heart cry. And of course, either the Mossad, either the Knights of Malta and the Vatican who are doing it, either the Chinese who are doing it, they will all perish in hell. So it doesn't matter on which side you are on, but if you're doing that kind of thing, you don't deserve to live, and your karma is condemned and for eternity. That's how it is. So thank you very much, Rob, for this inspiring interview. I hope that we can meet in the future when you're going to have thousands of more subscribers to your channel. And of course, it was a good way of also getting to know Canada. I will be starting my own radio show in the next few months. So keep yourself ready, because I will have various guests from Canada popping in for their own say about Canada. I think really that Canada needs to be awakened. Like people say, California is a lost cause, Canada is a lost cause, Colorado is a lost cause. Soon they're going to say Texas is a lost cause. Then they're going to say another, okay, we have Oregon is already a lost cause. Then, guys, nothing is a lost cause. We have to fight until the last brain that still is managing to make sense and is not libtarded and has lost, the last brain. Because there is certain people who have just given up on thinking, and they get the CNN to think for them. Well, that is pretty bad. I mean.
Well, see, Anderson Cooper happens to be a distant cousin of mine, so I know a little bit about the CNN inside stuff.
So you have distant cousin who is one of the biggest scumbags from CNN. You have actually been able to with Tony Robbins. You have some interesting things to say about Tony Robbins, because you also been doing his courses. Well, I mean, you have some very interesting experiences here that we can discuss also in the future.
And I certainly hope that we have many get-togethers again via Skype and hopefully in person at some point, Leo.
Okay, thank you so much, Rob. Sooner or later, I will be able to come to Canada, probably once I get my US citizenship. And in the meantime, I salute all your viewers, listeners, and just subscribe to the channel of Rob. Adomus?
Yeah, it's the So Not PC podcast with Rob Adomus.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. We had a lot of people tuning in on my channel. I hope also on your side of things. Thank you very much to everyone. We will see each other later on. I will be tuning in again in 3 hours with another interview. And in the meantime, bye-bye, Rob. Take care. God bless you.
Thank you, Leo. Take care. God bless.